Let's talk about how to choose the right merchant account provider. And if you're in an industry where you need a credit card processed or even debit card processed for that matter, you would need to have the right merchant account provider. So here's an overview I want you to pay attention to when we talk about choosing the right merchant account provider. There are the few rules you need to really abide by to make sure that you pick the correct credit card processor for your industry and your company. This is really important. Remember, the merchant services industry is actually notorious for hidden fees, unethical agents, and expensive contracts. I'm not even talking to you about something called ETF, early termination fee. It's kind of crazy. Sometimes they charge you really crazy high amounts if you want to actually cancel a contract. So you want to be very careful when it comes to finding a quality provider. This can take hours of research, even days. Okay, and it's really important to understand that you do not want to make the mistake of actually saying, this is actually an afterthought. No, this is really important because it can cost you hundreds of dollars, if not thousands of dollars, if you were to go to lawsuits. So rates matter, of course, but choosing a merchant account provider based on rate quotes alone can be a costly error for your business. In fact, rate quotes can be one of the most deceptive aspects of the merchant services industry. Even if you can see through the teaser rates and deceptive marketing gimmicks, you still would not be able to make an apples to apples comparison between most providers because of the way they actually present the pricing data to you. Not always in a very transparent manner. Okay. Many providers bury their markups in confusing pricing structures instead of clearly disclosing their built-in margins on each transaction. So what's my point here? My point is that don't try to really blame the game or the players. You just want to be aware of what you're getting yourself into and be prepared. And how do you prepare yourself? Well, that's what I'm going to tell you in today's conversation. You want to do research, of course, but you also have to make sure that you read the contracts, anything you are signing, any fine prints, whatever. You have to really, really read. And if you do not understand, you want to ask questions. And if you reach an agreement, make sure the agreement is in writing. Okay, you can't just trust the rates you've been quoted. Okay, you need to always make sure things are in writing. This is very important. By the way, boss, welcome back to the show. It's really a pleasure to have you here. Make yourself comfortable. You are going to enjoy today's conversation. So let me give you a review here. So the first thing you want to do here is you want to look for a provider that serves your business's specific needs. It's so important because when we talk about the merchant account provider industry, you have all kinds of players. Okay, but the question is, do you have a player that really caters to your specific niche? This is so important. Are you a bad credit merchant? If you're a bad credit merchant, you want to work with a merchant that really understands the needs of bad credit merchants. Again, when we talk about bad credit, we're talking about not only a bad credit, bad business credits, but also bad personal credits. Okay. Or are you in a high risk industry? If you're in a high risk industry, you want to have a merchant account provider that actually caters to that niche and has the capabilities to actually deal with all kinds of problems and regulatory compliance programs that deal with high-risk merchants. Okay, it's really important. So you should start by asking yourself what you want out of your payment processor. Do you require mobile processing, online payments? Do you run, let's say, a large retail location, or are you a one-person operation? And the question is, how often do you need to accept credit cards? I mean, do you accept credit cards every day or every hour or every month or whatever? So what's the frequency here? And is your business only open for a few months out of the year? So this is really important because you want to actually narrow your search right off the bat. So seasonality plays an important role, but so does also the kind of niche you're in. So many merchants simply find the lowest price and work backward from there, but this method can force them to fit a square peg into a round hole. The better option is to first compile a list of providers who specialize in your business needs before you turn your attention to contractual considerations. So if you sign an agreement under the expectation that a provider will operate outside of its comfort zone, then it's only a matter of time before that provider lets you down. It's one of those things where you have to really be clear about what you're getting yourself into right off the bat. And one thing I want to say here is that when we talk about all the possibilities not just the possibility, but let's just say all the possibilities, all the things that could happen that could go wrong. You can be sure that things can really be pretty complicated, especially if you have no idea what you're getting yourself into. By the way, boss, I want to quickly remind you of today's topic. We are having a conversation about how to choose the right merchant account provider. The next thing you want to do here is you want to request a month-to-month contract with no early termination fees. This is so important. This sentence is important. I'm going to repeat it. You want to request a month-to-month contract with no early termination fees. So let's first talk about the month-to-month contract. So you do not want to tie yourself down into a contract like an annual contract that goes on and on and on and on, whatever. No. You want to have flexibility. You want to have legal flexibility. You want to have operational flexibility. You never know. Maybe tomorrow you might want to change your merchant account provider. So you want to have that flexibility. Retain that flexibility. That's number one. Number two, you want to actually you want to really avoid any ETF, early termination fee. And let's see, the thing here is that when we talk about ETFs, a lot of times those things have to be in writing. Okay. Don't actually take your merchant account provider's word for it. No, you got to have proof. You got to have written proof that they said they're not going to charge you, because the whole thing here is that, the merchant account industry, they actually employ several sales agents who unfortunately are generally independent contractors and do not work for the company you just contracted with. So because there is no sort of contractual obligations here in terms of labor, sometimes you can be told one thing and the company will tell you another thing. Okay, so let's say you sign up for a merchant account through a company that seems promising, but you realize that a few months that it's not the right service for you. That's okay. You just call the provider up and request cancellation, right? Sadly, it's rarely that easy. Most credit card processing contracts last for years and can really include harsh fees for merchants who cancel service early. In addition, these agreements often have complicated cancellation procedures that must be correctly followed in order to prevent the contract from renewing for additional terms. You might realize within weeks that you've made a bad choice, but you have to live with it for years. Okay. And so luckily, some providers are starting to listen to merchant frustration on this issue. So month-to-month contracts are increasingly common, and it's getting harder for processors to conceal expensive penalties in their terms and conditions. So you should make it clear from the start that you expect a month-to-month agreement with no termination fees, and then you should actually double-check the actual language of your contract to ensure that you'll be able to cancel without consequences if you are unhappy with the service. Okay. And this is the easiest way to protect yourself from a bad merchant account contract. Very important. You want to pay attention to customer service. Customer service is really important. You want to look for a provider that has excellent customer support. Okay. See, the whole thing here is that, that's what I said earlier. When you think about a merchant account provider, don't just look at don't just look at the rates. Customer service is kind of quite essential also. And customer service is really changing at a rapid pace. Traditional call centers and personal service reps are being replaced by options like FAQ sections, user forums, live chat, email tickets, and social media channels. So before you sign up with a provider, you should ask yourself what kinds of customer service are most important to you and what kind of availability you expect from your payment processor. And so at a minimum, it's best to find companies with phone support during business hours. You never know what emergencies might arise during the business day, and it can be a major frustration to lose sales because you can't contact a real human being. And so beyond basic phone support, you'll have to determine which methods you find most effective. So do you like to be able to chart a ticket's progress through a back-end support system? Do you prefer to ask other customers how they were able to solve their issues? Will your employees need 24/7 phone support? And the thing is that, are you comfortable just going through let's say a knowledge base or FAQ session to read the answer to your question yourself? So it's one of those things where you really have to see what really works for you and your employees. I mean, those who are going to use the service the most. Okay. So once you have found a company that offers the support you require, you should also be sure to search for user reviews of that company. Are other merchants satisfied with the service they received? How does the company respond to public complaints? Are there positive testimonials of the company available in public forums? Okay. And it's one of those things where if you can find a provider that is available when you need it, that takes its reputation seriously and that will work with you to retain your business, then you are well on your way to securing peace of mind as a merchant. And you got to have that peace of mind because listen, you have sales to make, you have a business to run. You do not want to worry about the credit card processing aspect of things because that's actually the back office work. That's the back end. You do not want to become a specialist in that regard anyway. The next thing you want to do here is to avoid processors. By the way, boss, I want to quickly remind you of today's topic. We are having a conversation about how to choose the right merchant account provider for your business. So the next thing I want you to do here is to avoid processors who push long-term equipment leases. You know, it's one of those things where you have to understand some equipment actually costs hundreds of dollars, if not thousands of dollars. If you were to think about the Clover series or the QuickBooks, you know, the Intuit QuickBooks series or the Shopify P.O.S, those cost hundreds of dollars. So consumer electronics like iPads and iPhones are becoming increasingly viable options for payment processing. But most merchants still require traditional hardware like credit card terminals, PIN pads, printers, or check readers to accept digital payments. If you find yourself in the market for specialized credit card processing hardware, be sure to watch out for a very common scam within the merchant services industry. This is predatory equipment leases. Okay. The rule of thumb is in this case is very simple. In the vast majority of cases, it is cheaper to buy your credit card processing equipment than it is to lease it. So processors like to throw all kinds of offers at you to convince you that an equipment lease will save you money. But these offers usually require a lot of creative math and more than a little misinformation. And most credit card terminals can be purchased for $200 to $300 at the very most on eBay or Amazon, while most equipment leases average $40 to $50 per month. So it doesn't really take much calculation to determine that you will dramatically overpay for that equipment over the life of a 48-month lease. Okay. And it's one of those things where you have to do your math, but you don't have to spend too much time doing the math either. And one thing I want to say here is that long-term equipment leases are a major cash cow for sales agents. So they are often included as part of your merchant account paperwork in the hope that you won't realize that you are committing to something that you do not really need. So, and there are also airtight, legally binding contracts. So they could leave you on the hook for the full repayment term, regardless of when you decide to cancel. So to avoid this, you should be sure to select a provider that does not advertise long-term equipment leases, and you should double check all documentation during the application process to ensure that you are not being duped into a lease you don't wish to sign anyway. The next thing you want to do is to ask for interchange plus pricing instead of tiered pricing. This is so important, okay? And you will save a lot of cash and you will have peace of mind over time if you go with interchange plus pricing. Let's talk about that. So while rates and fees are not everything, they are certainly important. The problem, though, is that it's nearly impossible to compare merchant accounts rates across providers. This is because of a common pricing tactic called tiered pricing. So let's say that one merchant account provider advertises rates as low as 1.15%, while another refers to their rates as starting at 1.25%. Which is the cheaper option, 1.15% or 1.25%? The answer is that you simply can't know. So for one thing, these rates only apply to a certain class or tier of credit cards known as the qualified tier. So certain card types like signature, debit, and non-rewards credit cards will swipe at this rate, but most other cards will process at higher rates known as mid-qualified or non-qualified rates. So you rarely see providers quoting these other rate tiers because they are much higher than the qualified rates, with many non-qualified rates exceeding 3%, in some cases even 4% per transaction. So as if this is not confusing enough, most providers won't tell you which card types fall under which tiers. So processors are free to move card types between tiers as they see fit, and they are under no legal obligation to tell you exactly how they have structured their tiers. So this leaves you in the dark as to how much the processors are making up each transaction, and make it really the whole thing makes it impossible for you to compare and contrast your current provider's rates to those offered by a competitor. So luckily, and this is one thing we have seen in our research, there is a solution to this problem that is available to all merchants. So this is called interchange plus pricing. So you want to go with that option, definitely. So interchange plus pricing is a different kind of rate structure that removes the confusion surrounding tiers. So under an interchange plus pricing model, providers pass along card costs at predetermined interchange rates and a non-negotiable per transaction rate set by Visa, MasterCard, and then add their own per transaction markup. So for instance, you might see one provider quote you a rate of interchange plus 0.18% per transaction, while another provider quotes you a rate of interchange plus 0.20% per transaction. In this case, it's actually easy to see which processor offers cheaper rates, since the processor's markup is clearly listed as the plus portion of the quote. So this is kind of important. Let me give you a bonus here if you're still with me until now. Remember that the best overall fit will depend on a combination of factors. So when we talk about having the right merchant account provider for your business, your business is different, your business is unique, and your business has a few particular operational capabilities that and needs also. And so your merchant account provider will actually depend on your needs. You may not find a provider for your business type that meets all of this criteria that I just gave you, at least not at first. Some providers might offer excellent customer service, but try to pressure you into equipment leases. Others might offer a month-to-month agreement, but charge higher than expected rates. So the key here is what? You got to stick to your priorities and avoid common hazards like misleading price, misleading rate quotes, or multi-year contracts. Okay, if you can find a handful of businesses that meet your specific needs and narrow your list down to 2 or 3 providers, based on the points that I just listed earlier, then you can negotiate with each remaining provider to secure the best rates and eliminate fees. Okay, especially the ETFs, the early termination fees. And so it's one of those things where you got to do a little bit of research. Now, if you have any question regarding everything I told you, you can just let us know in the comment section, and our team members will get back to you. We'll answer all questions you have about your specific business. So when you ask the questions, please tell us where you are located at. Tell us your city and state so we have a clear idea what kind of, and tell us also the industry you're in so we have a clear idea about what kind of particulars you're dealing with. And we'll give you our best guidance when it comes to the right merchant account provider for your business. Thank you so much for your attention. I really appreciate it. Let me do a quick recap here into this conversation. I spoke to you about how to choose the right merchant account provider for your business. I give you the overview, and I give you the review, and finally, I give you the bonus. Thank you so much. God bless you. I'll speak to you another time. Until then, remember, stay marvelous.